Evolution is a bad tree, has a bad root, brings forth evil fruit. Evolution is the foundation for immorality. It's the foundation for humanism, the foundation for racism. And now we're going to cover evolution is the foundation philosophy for Nazism, communism, and the New World Order. Evolution, the foundation for Nazism. Why did Hitler do what he did? Now Mussolini, the dictator in Italy, thought the Italians were the superior species that deserved to rule the world. So did the Germans, so they linked up together for a while. So they thought, well, we'll just rule it together, and then when we get too many people, we'll decide between the two of us who's the strongest. Mussolini and Hitler were strong believers in evolution. Now Hitler believed the Germans were the superior race that deserved to rule the world. Arthur Keith said, the German Führer has consistently sought to make the practice of Germany conform to the theory of evolution. A direct line runs from Darwin through the father of eugenics movement, Darwin's cousin Francis Galton, to the extermination camps of Nazi Europe. Hitler's book that he wrote, Mein Kampf, written in 1924 while he was in, much of it while he was in prison, between the two wars, it's full of evolution. You ought to read the book. It's a boring read for one thing, but it's just absolutely full of his evolution philosophy. Since the time he was a boy, he was dominated by this one thinking that one race is superior to another because of evolution. In this book, while 6 million died, it tells about the story where Hitler offered to send the Jews to anybody who would take them. Hitler said, do you want the Jews? I'll send them to you on luxury ships if you want them. But you know, America refused to take the Jews. Roosevelt said, we don't want them. America had very racist immigration policies before World War II. Long stories there. You can read about the ship that came to Cuba and tried to unload their Jews and said, basically, we don't want them. They sailed all the way up the east coast of America. Every port in America refused to allow 900 and some Jews to get off the boat. So they sent them back to Europe. In Hitler's book, Mein Kampf, he said, no more than nature desires the mating of weaker with stronger individuals, even less does she desire the blending of a higher with a lower race. He talked about the mingling of Aryan blood and lower peoples. This is all based on a philosophy called evolution. One race has evolved farther than the rest. Now who's an Aryan? And what are these lower peoples anyway? Well, Hitler taught that the blonde-haired, blue-eyed Norwegians were close to pure Aryan. Did you follow all that? The blonde-haired, blue-eyed Norwegian, voor en stoor, de hele dag. And he thought the Germans were mostly Aryan. The Mediterraneans are slightly Aryan. Slavics are half Aryan, half ape. Orientals are slightly ape. The black Africans are mostly ape. And the Jews are close to pure ape. Hitler killed the Jews because of his evolution thinking. We fought a really big war. Probably 100 million people died in World War II altogether because of that stupid theory. It's not just dumb, folks. It's dangerous. Hitler also hated the black people. 1936, Olympics were held in Germany. Jesse Owens, the black American athlete, won the most gold medals, and Hitler walked out of the stadium. Said, it's not fair to make my men race against this animal. One of the Jewish prisoners who survived the Holocaust said there's a difference between those who look upon their fellow human beings as common creatures of a common creator and those who look upon them as conglomerate of biologicals and chemicals. Is the human body nothing but chemicals? That's what Hitler thought. Man, we can get so many ounces of soap out of them and so many ounces of grease and so many ounces of hair and, you know, just chemicals. I've been to Germany several times. I read lots of books about Hitler and the Holocaust just to keep my blood boiling. What Hitler did was because of his belief in evolution. He thought they were an inferior species. So this is not just some kind of academic discussion, folks. This is a dangerous philosophy. There's me at Flossburg concentration camp where they mined all the granite for Hitler's monuments, okay? And millions of people were killed because of Hitler's belief in evolution. Dumb idea. I stood in that spot where Hitler's standing in that picture, just thinking about this huge conference ground at Nuremberg. Hitler tried to make the individual feel small and the cause seem great. People are doing the same thing today with the young people. Hitler knew how to reach the youth of his nation. He wanted to indoctrinate the young people. By the way, Nazism is still alive and well in America. It's really alive and well in Wisconsin. One man in Skokie, Illinois, near Chicago, told the authorities he killed a plastic surgeon he found in the phone book because these plastic surgeons were making blue-tinted contact lenses and they're diluting the Aryan beauty. Picked him out of the phone book and killed him. Hitler thought that biological evolution was the best force to fight against traditional religion. Hitler said, I regard Christianity as the most fatal, seductive lie that ever existed. Now, Lutzer from Moody Bible Institute wrote a great book on Hitler's cross, how Hitler tried to hide behind the cross. But actually he was anti-Christian in everything he did. You should read the Barmen Declaration. Go to the internet and type in Barmen Declaration and see what... You wonder, where was the German resistance to Hitler? Where was the Christian resistance to Hitler? Why didn't the Christians do something to stop this guy? Well, we're going to wonder that someday. Why didn't the Christians in America do something to stop the New World Order? Why didn't they do something? Okay? Hitler used Nazi propaganda pictures like this, him walking out of a church with a cross above his head. It's all propaganda. He hated Christianity. Did you know they have Nazi baptisms and Nazi altars? You could be baptized into Nazism. It was a total religion. Hitler said, you tell a lie long enough and loud enough and often enough, the people will believe it. He said people are more likely to believe a big lie than a small one. By the way, the Japanese also thought they were a superior species because they had evolved farther. Darwin's book hit Japan, and people just loved it. I mean, the crazy religions they had in Japan at the time just absorbed evolution right into their thinking. When Darwin's book was translated to Japanese, everybody said, wow, what an amazing theory, evolution. And the next obvious step is, hey, if evolution's true, which race has evolved the farthest? Japanese scientists did studies to find out which race of people have less hair, and it was the Japanese. They said, see, we've evolved farther from the apes. They said we have milder body odor. They did real scientific studies to prove the Japanese had evolved farther. And that's why you won't understand what happened in World War II when American prisoners were captured and tortured like at Bataan, the Bataan Death March, or the concentration camps over there. You're not going to understand why this happened until you understand the thinking of the Japanese soldiers. They hadn't been taught all of their life evolution. We have evolved farther. These are inferior species. It's really best if we eliminate them. The soldiers that survived World War II in German and Japanese concentration camps were amazed at how cruel the Japanese were. Just cruel to the prisoners. Well, they thought they were an inferior species. Evolution is the foundation for communism. Communism is a theory that believes that God does not exist or is not necessary, that man is responsible, ties hand in hand with humanism. Roger Baldwin, the founder of the ACLU, the American Communist Lawyers Union, said communism is the goal. The purpose of the ACLU was to advance communism. That's why they were founded. Now, Moses Mordecai Marx Levy, alias Karl Marx, the founder of communism, had written a paper when he was 17 years old telling how much he loved the Lord. Then he went off to college, studied philosophy, turned his back on God, and developed his theories of communism, which go hand in glove with evolution. Did you know 75% of kids that go from Christian homes to public schools are going to lose their faith after 1 year of college? You parents better think long and hard before you send all your kids off to school. Are you sending them off to a secular university so they can make more money in life? Is that your goal? You willing to risk, 3/4 of them? I'd recommend at least one good year of Bible college before they go to a secular school, even if it's not accredited, just to get them grounded in the Bible. And really get them grounded in creation before you send them off there. High casualty rate at those places. Now, Karl Marx later said in life, he said, my objective in life is to dethrone God and destroy capitalism. Karl Marx is the founder of communism. He based his philosophy on evolution. He tried to dedicate his book to Charles Darwin. He wrote a letter to Charles Darwin. He said, dedicated to Charles Darwin from a sincere admirer, Karl Marx. Darwin's wife said, honey, you better not accept this. This may be a little much, okay? Karl Marx had 6 children, never worked a day in his life. 3 of his kids died of starvation in infancy. 2 others committed suicide. Not a successful model father. When he died, 6 people attended his funeral. Karl Marx developed, though, in 1848, the Communist Manifesto. How to destroy a country. How to have it be taken over by communism. First thing, you abolish private property. Now, everything Marx did intentionally was anti-Christian. If the Bible's for it, he's against it. See, the Bible makes private property a real serious issue. Ownership of private property is critical. You can't have freedom without property rights. What good's it do to say you got all kinds of freedom if there's no place to exercise your freedom? Leviticus 25 says the 50th year was hallowed, and it's the year of Jubilee. You could not possibly lose your property permanently in the biblical system. It says every man has his own vine and his own fig tree. Drink waters out of your own cistern, waters out of your own well. Private property is essential. But Peter Burrell, president of the Audubon Society, said we reject the idea of private property. Guess where I know where he got that. Karl Marx developed the idea of a graduated income tax. The more you make, the more they take. That's Karl Marx's idea. Okay? He said you need to abolish rights of inheritance. The Bible says a good man leaveth an inheritance to his children's children. Karl Marx was against that. Confiscate property rights. Evolution's a foundation of communist philosophy behind the money powers. Karl Marx said we need a central bank. This was a communist idea. The banking system we're using today in America, the Federal Reserve, is a direct result of Karl Marx's thinking. Nothing federal about it. It's private bankers that run our currency. The Bible says, love of money, root of all evil. All evil. What you need to do is real simple. You follow the yellow brick road. By the way, that whole movie was made to teach us something very interesting. The yellow brick road, the land of Oz, O-Z, ounces, gold. They had a straw man, no brain. Tin man, no heart. That's commerce, is heartless. A long, interesting story behind that, the real meaning behind that movie. Karl Marx, one of his ideas was government ownership of communication, like our FCC, or transportation, like the TSA. Karl Marx's idea, see, the government's going to take over transportation. They've already taken over the airports, haven't they? Try to fly. I fly 215 times a year, last year. Just see what you got to go through with government regulation in transportation. Government ownership of factories and agriculture. Government control of labor. This was all Marx's idea. Corporate farms and regional planning. Everything exactly backwards to Christianity. Free education for all in public schools. That was Karl Marx's idea. Our public school system. Hitler said, let me control the textbooks, I'll control the state. Martin Luther said, I am very much afraid that the schools will prove to be the great gates to hell, unless they diligently labor in explaining the Scriptures, engraving them on the hearts of the youth. I advise no one to place his child where the Scriptures do not reign paramount. Every institution in which men are not increasingly occupied with the Word of God must become corrupt. Here's a 1777 school book used here in America, the New England Primer. They taught the kids the alphabet using poems like this. In Adam's fall we sinned all. Heaven to find, the Bible mind. Christ crucified for sinners died. Can you believe that's a public school textbook? Here's how the kids learned their alphabet again. A wise son maketh a glad father. Bible verses for all the letters of the alphabet. You ought to read Fourth Reich of the Rich if you want to study more on education and how money powers have gotten involved in this. But communism is totally anti-Christian in every possible way. This is the communist rules for revolution. For number one, you corrupt the young. Break down the moral virtues. Just incredible the way this is what they've done. Corrupt the young. Get them away from religion. Break down the moral virtues. Encourage a soft government attitude toward crime. You know, 3 strikes and you're out. How about 1 strike and you're out? Where's the victims' rights in all this? Divide the people into hostile groups. Get the people's minds off their government. Focus their attention on athletics. Get people more worried about, soccer or football than what the government's doing. You know, in 1896, there were 311 athletes in the Olympics. In 100 years later, there were 13,000. There are probably people in this room that know more about the local sports team or the Green Bay Packers than you do about who's the senators from your state. Our minds are off our government, all right. Control all media, like CNN, the Communist News Network. Don't get me started on the media, okay? Destroy people's faith in their leaders, okay? Lenin said, those who cast the votes decide nothing. Those who count the votes decide everything. Interesting thinking. Who's programming these voting booths that are counting the ballots by computers? Who's programming this computer? Go to vote scam on the internet. Just type in vote scam and see what you find, okay? Cause the registration of firearms so that you can eventually confiscate them. Gun control. Communist idea. Lenin said one person with a gun can control 100 people without one. Imagine the scene. You're standing in a bank trying to cash a check. Somebody runs in there with a gun, pulls out a gun and says, everybody lay on the floor. So everybody lays on the floor. Now imagine this scene. Every citizen is armed. The guy runs in the bank. Lay on the floor. Everybody pulls out their gun. You lay on the floor while we all stomp on your head. Okay. Every dictator throughout history has wanted gun control. It's just a normal thing. You have to control the guns. Every dictator's wanted that. Gun control is not about guns. It's about control. Somebody sent me this button as a joke. Proudly unarmed. Would you wear this? What does this say to a criminal? Rob me. Isn't that what it says? At a very early age, Comrade Stalin went to a Christian school and he read Darwin's book and became an atheist. That's the book that changed Joseph Stalin's life forever. Joseph Stalin killed between 60 and 100 million of his own people. You should read anything by Alexander Solzhenitsyn, like the Archipelago Gulag, you know, the concentration camp. He spent 10 years in Stalin's concentration camps. One of my daughter-in-law is from Ukraine. I used to have 7 people on our staff from former Soviet countries. We know what they do over there. When Germany and Russia attacked Poland during World War II, Poland, you know, was just totally overwhelmed and no chance of survival in a situation like that. They captured all these Polish officers. They asked Stalin, what should we do with the officers? He said, oh, they're just Poles, execute them. They finally admitted it in 1992. The Russians finally admitted, yep, we killed 14,700 officers at the Katyn forest. Massacred them. Why? Well, if you believe in evolution, you think you're superior because they're just inferior. You know, it's really best to wipe them out. It's like pulling weeds. That's all it is. Pol Pot, the leader of Cambodia during Cambodian reign of terror, killed 1/3 of his own population. I don't recommend you watch The Killing Fields. It's a pretty vile movie, but boy, it's pretty accurate. I mean, that's what they did. They killed people by the tens of thousands for any reason. When the communists took over China, they began killing Christians at a rate of 15,000 a month. Missionaries that were there reported, those that survived, that got out of China, said, you know, it was strange. When they came into our village, the communists came in, they didn't start teaching communism in the schools. The first thing they did in the schools was start teaching evolution. The communists know full well evolution is the foundation for communism.